it came back, and because of this, I would say that nowadays, after the Yom Kippur War, the younger people are more interested in Jewish history as well as in the Holocaust. They are more interested in Jewish identification, and some of them are even more interested in Jewish religion than they were before. So this is how I see the thing now.
Mr. President, can you give us any encouragement about the official recognition of the conservative and reform Jewry movements in Israel?
Yeah, now I can't give any official statement about it. All I can say is I have quite a number of personal friends who are very orthodox. Among them, the two chief rabbis. At least when they come here, they don't quarrel. But I have certainly very many good friends who belong to the conservative movement and to the reform movement. My personal feeling is that the reform movement, as well as the conservative movement, will be more influential with time than they have been before in Israel. And to a certain extent, it's the result of the fact that some of my Orthodox friends do not behave the best way one should, and the younger generation somehow doesn't look at it with great appreciation. And on the other hand, because of the fact that many of our younger people who somehow didn't want to be involved with any religious activity, after the Yom Kippur War, they are looking for something which is close to religious kind of identification. But nevertheless, not all of them are ready to be Orthodox Jews. So in this respect, I would say that the influence of the reform and conservative movements will be stronger. I would add perhaps one thing. The attitude in Israel towards Reform Jews and conservative Jews is now much more liberal than it has been before. I still remember what was going on when the Glick school had to be opened in Jerusalem, and it was a kind of a beginning of the Reform Jews entering into this Holy of Holiness of Jerusalem. So no, now the attitude is much more liberal. But until time will come that will have marriages by Reform rabbis or rebbitzins, I'm afraid it will take a long time.
Mr. President, a long time ago, Ham dreamt a vision that Israel would provide a spiritual rejuvenation and revitalization for diaspora Jewry. Thus far, aside from Israel providing a sense of identification with the state for Jews in diaspora, very little of Ham's vision has been fulfilled. What do you think should be the role of Israel in helping Jewish identity in the diaspora generally and Jewish education in particular?
Now, of course, as you all know, Adam was one of our best Jewish philosophers. He visited Israel, and he had this dream that Israel will become a center of scholarly activity. Really, mitzion tetzeh Torah v'dvar Hashem Yerushalayim. This was his dream. Has it been achieved? I would say to a certain extent, yes, and let's not ignore it. The fact that you have now a number of universities, a number of institutes of higher learning, And in some of them you have scholars who are very good scholars on any international scale. So this is certainly something that has been achieved. Moreover, I think that in many Jewish studies, you have here very great centers indeed, and they will certainly continue to flourish. In certain areas, in physics, in nuclear physics, we have excellent people. In biology, we have some outstanding people. So we have it. But whether Israel is already the light for the world in scholarly activity, with all modesty, I would say, certainly not. You have here good scholars, but it's still not the center of learning in the world. My feeling is that we must have here very important centers of learning, because this is the only way that Israel can affect and have an influence on many other countries and many other people by scholarly intellectual activities, by education, having the highest, the best education that one can dream of. And education is not only knowing facts, it's also behavior and morals and attitude towards your colleagues. We haven't achieved it because till now, because you have to take into consideration that every young man of ours still has to spend for 3 years, 3 months a year in the army. He's called here and there. And meanwhile, we had quite a number of wars, and he knows that he may be called again to fight and to protect the country. So let's not overdo it in looking at things in a very simple way, because I know that many of my friends at Harvard and MIT and Berkeley, they needle me. Why aren't our institutes of learning the best institutes of learning in the world? But my answer is, you know, if you want to be a scholar, the first thing you should do is to survive. If you don't survive, it's very difficult to be a good scholar. So one has also to have it to survive. If times will be better, if we'll have better cooperation, I'm sure that more and more emphasis will be put on all scholarly type of activities.
Let me take you to New York for a moment to a Board of Governors meeting. We oftentimes debate a position that Israel is taking, an action that Israel is taking. And sometimes we don't agree, and we would like to tell Israel that we don't agree. But we get up to a certain point and we back away. We either feel a sense of disloyalty. We're certainly not going to go to the press with it. We don't have always a means of communicating back to Israel how we feel about the subject. How do you regard the American, how would you advise us, the American Jewish Committee, to communicate with Israel when we feel that Israel is doing something that is not to her best interest on the American scene? And I think this would be very helpful to us because we run up against that problem.
Now, let me perhaps say the following. First of all, it was always my feeling, and it has been just strengthened, that we Israelis should not come to Jews abroad in the diaspora and ask them only for money, to buy bonds and to give more money for UJ. We should do this as well. And we have some good people who are doing it. I'm sure among you have people who are interested in this activity. But my feeling is that this is not enough because of the fact that if we want to develop Israel in the right way, we should use not only the money of the Jews abroad, we should use their brains, their skills, and their hearts and their feelings. We have Jews with extraordinary important skills for us. Engineers, doctors, industrialists, people of commerce and lawyers who can be of enormous help to us. So when we talk about cooperation, it's really not that we will do the job, you send us the money. It's a mistake, to my opinion. We should collaborate in education, in economy, in all types of skill that we can collaborate. But if we want real collaboration, it's obvious that we should listen to our family members abroad and not to tell them, you don't say anything. But there are, so I feel that we should exchange information and ideas in education and in profession and economic development and in very many fields. There are certain fields that Israel should be left alone. Once we are dealing with security problems, it's strictly an Israeli problem. We should certainly inform our friends, but the question of survival is strictly a local problem. As far as politics goes, I'm afraid we can exchange more our opinions, and finally, certainly the government of Israel will make their own decision, but perhaps our politicians should have closer ties and at least a more open ear to hear what our friends and family members talk about. But as far as the politics of the government goes, relations with other countries, it's their decision, but they have to listen more open-mindedly, I feel, than they did it before. So I would say we want real cooperation, at least as far as my feelings go, and be open-minded as members in a family. Sometimes members in a family quarrel, but they remain a family. This is what we want.
I'm sorry to cut off the questions.
Let's have another two.
Another two questions.
I see.
Here, we'll take one over here, Lane.
Mr. President, there have been reports that since the Yom Kippur War, the rigors of living in Israel have been such that many Israelis have made an exodus from Israel, and that at the same time there is a diminution of Aliyah here. And I wondered if this is really so and how you feel about it.
Well, it's true that quite a number of Israelis have left the country and are still leaving the country because of many reasons, and it's a complex situation. Life is difficult. Sometimes it's very uncomfortable, and it's not so nice to fight every couple of years again and again if you fight yourself or if you have your children going to fight, because all this doesn't lead to very pleasant things usually. So one can understand it, and one can certainly try to do whatever one can in order to prevent it and to make life easier. But it's certainly a difficult thing. But I think that to build a state, a new state and a new country, and a new homeland for the Jewish people is not an easy thing, should not be an easy thing, and let me be tough about it and say, those who don't have the courage to do it, let them not do it. I feel that the Jewish people, and without really talking in an exaggerated way, they have been waiting for 2,000 years for this opportunity. Our generation has this opportunity. I'm afraid that we can miss it if we will not do what we have to do. And in this respect, I feel really the right and the privilege to ask of every man who has courage, who has vision, who has idealism in his heart, to do it. But if he doesn't have it, well, it's just too bad. We should try, certainly, to do everything one can in order to make life better and easier. But nevertheless, without idealism, without understanding of your own people, your destiny, it's very, very difficult to do it. All I can add is that those who do it, their personal lives are enriched, their family lives are enriched, and may I say, and I know very many of them who lost sons and daughters, who lost fathers and mothers, during this attempt, they are enriched, they are stronger people, they know what they are living for. Finally, every one of us will die. So let's live a life worth living.
We'll take one more question. Hi, Bookbinder, our Washington representative.
After that eloquent statement, I'm not sure I want to do this, but I will, because you invited criticism or disagreements, totally disagreement. There's been much discussion, especially in the period since the Solidarity Conference, about Aliyah. Judging some of us, the numbers that have been used by some of the spokesmen have been so extravagantly unrealistic that we think it's not useful for the state of Israel for such numbers to be used, 5, 6, 7, 8 billion. Now there's an educational dimension of the question I want to ask you. If you want to comment on that, that's all right, but on the premise that there will in fact be for a long time a diaspora that will be substantially larger than the Israeli population itself, I have a feeling that while we are trying to think through how we can better educate the diaspora about Israel, that Israel is perhaps not being taught enough about Jews in other parts of the world. Do you feel there can be and ought to be an improvement in that aspect of Israeli education?
Now, first, let me refer to your first comment as far as numbers go. Well, you know, all my life I've been dealing with numbers and statistics, and I'm not impressed. You know, by statistics you can prove anything. So you know that this kind of little story, what's better to become a millionaire or to get TB, tuberculosis? And by statistics, you certainly prove that to get tuberculosis is much better, because if you have tuberculosis, only every 7th man dies, but millionaires every one by statistics. so you know, if you are not very careful about it, you can prove anything. But I think we should certainly try to encourage Aliyah. I would say that when we ask people to come from countries like the United States or Canada or South Africa, we should try to work out with them together the educate conditions in Israel, so that when they come, they can make a living, that they can be useful to themselves and to the country. And just kind of propaganda without having something behind it, it will not lead to very fruitful results. But then to your second comment, should we teach our people about the Jews in the diaspora? I feel certainly yes. And it is my feeling, just as I feel that we want young people from the United States to come to Israel, to stay here for shorter or longer time, in order to know what is Israel. I feel that we should ask and do whatever we can that some of our younger people will stay for shorter or longer times in places where we have Jewish communities, in order to have these contacts, they will be of very great importance to both sides. And I think that our younger people should learn about the history of Jewish communities. And let me say, and now I say as a president of the state, when you learn about the Jewish communities, it's something extraordinary. You know, we have here kind of a little circle in which we run by Professor Davis, who's originally from the United States, and he's interested in contemporary Jewry. And we have here discussions about Jews in various parts of the world. Jews who lived in North Africa and Yemen and in the United States and in Canada and many other places. It's a fascinating story, the way Jews have behaved and what they have developed. It's unbelievable. You know, we had here just a short while ago the Speaker of the Knesset, Yeshayahu. He is a Yemenite. So, and we had here some discussions about Yemenites and Jews from North Africa. Usually, we Ashkenazi Jews, we have not been very much interested about Jews from these backward countries, you know, who cares about their culture, history. So we somehow wanted, just as an example of Jewish communities far away. You know, in Yemen and in North Africa, Jews were living and waiting for 2,000 years. When will they be able already to come to Israel? It's not a year and not a generation, 2,000 years, more. In North Africa, certain areas, that they started from the Carthago times. They were there in North Africa. Jews in Yemen, we are told, didn't dare to build houses of brick and stone because Messiah can come in any minute, so it isn't worthwhile to have a reasonable house. And we are told that in North Africa, where Jews lived in caves in the Atlas Mountains, so when the state of Israel was established and the Shaliach, you know, came from Israel, Ben Gurion sent him to the mountains of Atlas, he knew only Hebrew, the Shaliach. The only man in these mountains who knew Hebrew was the rabbi. He learned it from his father from another rabbi for these 2,000 years. And he talked with the Shaliach from Israel. After their discussion during the night, the Shaliach told here in this house that next morning all the Jews from these caves assembled, everyone with his little package. They were ready to cross the Mediterranean, to come by foot, to come to Israel. These histories of the Jewish people is something extraordinary. And I feel that you are absolutely right, that we have to train our people here and to give them pride in the fact that we have Jews in many other countries. We want Aliyah, but we will not ignore the fact that we have Jews in the United States, wonderful Jews. And some of them are sitting here. And we want to know them. And we will know them. And there is now a serious effort in this direction. Yaakov Tzur, who some of you may know, he has just now published, he's the president, the chairman of the Keren Kayemet L'Israel. He has just now written a book about Jewish communities all over the world, their history, their customs, their behavior. It's extraordinary. And one has to know it. I fully agree.
Thank you very much, President Kacir, for your time, your warmth, your insights, and your hospitality. Bob Grease, who's one of our Board of Governors, reminded me tonight that we Jews are people of the book, and we do have a book, and it's a book that is published annually by the American Jewish Committee. It's our yearbook that we do want to give to you this evening. I was impressed when I was in your library with the large number of books that you have there, and I hope that you will welcome this book. It's a book that does recite the events and trends in American and world Jewish life for 1976. And may I say, as we are here next year to present the one for 77, that I hope that it will be a year of peace. Thank you very much.